moving on to our next story of the day. This comes from Australia and is in the Australian newspaper. Young women in their 20s are most at risk for the 19 bug infection. Now, I have not pre-read this, but we'll read it together and we'll decide if it's more like propaganda to spread, I don't know, women's rights, or if it's trying to gather government money for a select section of the population versus the population as a whole. Many times, you'll in the media, you will see one incident happen and they will try to make an example out of it just so they can gather resources, not necessarily to create awareness or educate. But I'm withholding judgment until we actually read the article. So, because as you know, in the news, we've always heard from Spain and from America, from Italy, that men. And usually it's the older generations or the young kids that are getting it. So let's get into this. As the death toll from the virus among elderly Australians climbs, young people may be forgiven for thinking they're invulnerable, but the latest data should make them think twice. The young woman should especially take note. Women aged in their 20s are Australia's most infected coronavirus cohorts, although why they're affected in greater numbers than young men remains unclear. It could be because younger women are more likely to go and get themselves tested, or maybe because they are slightly more social. The other thing to think about is that young women in the age group, there would be more of them working in hospitals and people working in contact with infected people, and more likely to be nurses with which are more women. Okay, well, I'm going to stop right there. Yes, there are more nurses and there are more teachers and stuff like that, but keep in mind that the governments themselves are the ones that push women into these fields, and they don't put quotas like, we want a 50% ratio, 50% men, 50% women. For example, in California, they try passing this law that we must have 1, 2, or 3 women on every company board, CEO board, whatever, because they push them into that. But, you never see them pushing when the other way. We want men into this field to educate our boy students in school. We want men in the hospital for the nurses and whatnot. So that's the government's choice. If the women are at risk, well, the women can go be coal miners or oil rig workers. Okay, so let's keep going. The latest data from the Federal Department of Health reserves that 369 women aged between 25 and 29 have developed the virus in Australia, making up more than 52% of the age category compared to males in the ages of 20 and 24 category. Women represent more than 62% of the age bracket. One more thing I wonder about is they say in Australia, but isn't Australia also heavily Chinese? So wouldn't many Australians actually be Chinese, or are they separated? I'm not Australian, so I don't know, but I question that, because Chinese, they fly home when they come back, or they interact with people from their country who probably already carried it. Okay, so the data shows that women in their 20s account for the largest cohort of coronavirus patients with more than 700 cases recorded. The next largest cohort is men aged in their 20s with fewer than 600. Okay, have been recorded. Okay, well, that's not too big of a difference. But I will say, if you look at my channel earlier, I think last week, Ukraine also reported that more women had the virus than men. So now we can draw a little comparison. Okay, so there's 2 countries that are saying that. So that's good. For Admiral Layhawk 27, the data is a wake-up call. I thought it was more older people, so hearing that is a bit of a shock, she said. Yeah, well, another question is, did you guys recover or not? Where's the death count? Unlike the crowds that flock to the cities, Bernie Beach, early March, young people are now as likely to be shuttering themselves home as the elderly. 26-year-old Cinnamon Lauren works in finance in Sydney, but it has been weeks since she's been inside her office building. I'm working from home, so I'm not going out much, except for the essentials like food and exercising. I'm not really seeing too many people, she said. Miss Lauren said she feels more vulnerable upon discovering she was part of the most infected category, but was willing to observe strict social distancing laws. Eh, yeah, but you know, I don't know. People are very easy to trick with emotions, and as we know, it's easy to manipulate data. So, where is the data? Real data. Cinema Manham, 28, from Ireland, who was working as a teacher in Sydney, said she had been unaware of being in Australians' highest risk category of infection. You think, oh, we're young enough, we should be fine, but I guess not. However, there are only so many precautions you can take. Well, just because you get the disease does not mean you'll die from it. Just like getting the cold, you recover. Miss Marin, whose sister is a nurse working with children, has taken extra precautions to protect the household against the virus. We have not allowed to have anyone over because our building has strict rules, as we live with high-risk people. So anyone who isn't a resident can't come in. We socialize in the house, eat in the house, don't really go anywhere. All we do is go for walks. All right, so I'm going to stop there. And I kind of left many questions throughout this conversation, but what do you think? Do you think it's true that the women are getting this, or do you think it's more propaganda for government money? I have not read how the government is spending the stimulus packages for Australia yet. I hope to find articles on that. But or do you think this is actual factual and is something that is concerning? Please leave your thoughts and comments below. I'd love to hear. Like, comment, subscribe. Well, that will conclude Loyal World News. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Feel free to like, subscribe, or drop a comment below. If you're on the go, listen to my podcast with the link provided in the description. I will see you tomorrow to share more world news.